Welcome to Messages from the Universe with Laurie Wondra. Laurie is an internationally renowned psychic medium, author, and shamanic practitioner, sharing insights from angels, guides, wisdom keepers, and teachers of the universe that help you navigate life's mysteries and transformations.
Hello, I am Laurie Wondra, and thank you for listening. The truth of our universe is we are always changing. Vibration is constant and forever moving, so that means we are forever moving. But what happens to our energy field when disruptions happen? How are the messages from loved ones sent to us? How are we supported during massive amounts of change or even times of opportunity? How do we get those nudges to move or not move? In January, I typically do deep cleaning after the holiday season, and I always do it before the Chinese New Year, which is typically at the end of January. I rearrange, I look at the flow of energy in my household, I remove things I don't love, and I make space or I replace them with what feels more fitting. In years past, I had always been in Arizona during the Chinese New Year. So I made this my New Year's practice before I would leave my home. I do this more than setting resolutions or picking a word for the year. But if someone were to ask me a good word or phrase for 2025, I'd say frequency and flow. The truth is we are all becoming more aware of energy and more sensitive to its flow, certainly when it flows or when it doesn't flow. For those accustomed to the present vibration, you'll feel a huge shift of energy because nothing ever stays the same, and it will continue to move, to ebb, to flow like a river, sometimes raging and sometimes flowing to a small trickle, and really everything in between. Be ready to ask yourself whether your energy is flowing or something feels more forced. If feeling more forced, how might you get back into a natural flow? This might be more of a mind challenge than anything because sometimes it will be a trickle and we'll expect it to be more, and sometimes it'll be a raging flow and rush of energy and we'll expect it to feel less. We have this image that flow means a lazy, easy river all the time. But in this case, flow means to be with the volume and the movement of the energy. But in the natural flow of energy of the universe, move with it, not against it, not away from it. Sometimes it will be a trickle and feel like nothing, and other times it will feel as if you can barely keep your nose above the movement. The key is to remember to breathe and keep moving with that flow. The universe will want us to be in a place of ease and flow, so the changes won't all feel so challenging. But when you move with the rhythms of energy, you will find that you can use your energy for more things. Remember to ask for help along this process. Follow the nudges and the pushes from the universe. Think of your humanness as a new canoe, a kayak or paddleboard, and you're getting ready for some new paddling and navigation lessons. And the instructor is the universe. Now row. Now as we row, it can feel as if we're all alone, but we really are supported by surrounding energies. And this was proven to me recently as I was doing some renovations in my home. I have wanted to redo my office, my kitchen area, my dining room, and living space for quite some time, like years. That would include removing the popcorn finish ceilings, replacing them with a more modern look, painting the walls to freshen and lighten that space. And I also needed to replace the flooring in my office, which is the most used space in this home. I see over 1,000 people each year, and not all in person in that space, but it is a high volume. It's a high traffic area. And I spend most of all my time with clients and in that office space creating. It is where I work on my newsletters and my podcasts are written, and where all the courses I teach are created, recorded, and stored. And though these thoughts of a redo have been swirling for years, The push to get it done was more urgent recently. And I know that those pushes were also coming from the other side, coming from a support system that is invisible to many that are around me, but I know is there for me. This office space and its brick red walls were purposely painted to represent the root chakra and support all that sit there, including me. The feng shui aligned with the home. The bookshelves are carefully lined with crystals, adding support and certainly a connection to Mother Earth. But it's time, and I was feeling it's time. A change of color, a change of flooring, a change of rearranging. And this year, it was more than just rearranging and looking at the flow of energy. It was making some major changes. And I know that this is aligned with where we are in making major changes in all areas of our lives as we dance into the energy of this new year. It's as if the universe is telling me, be prepared. There are new teachers, new wisdom keepers. There's new amounts of information coming to us. And you too need to be prepared to support this energy and to support all the clients and people that are coming to this space. So as I was preparing for the changes in this space and other spaces in my home, I was feeling overwhelmed, but I kept finding dimes. Now, dimes or other coins are often messages from our loved ones that they are with us. Usually, it's a message of approval or support that we are on track. And I was feeling overwhelmed in taking on this redo of these spaces while continuing with holiday entertaining, clients, classes, events, newsletter writing, and podcast publications. Yet, I was excited, and I also knew I was supported. As I emptied these spaces, I was tired and sore from carrying rocks from one area to another. I tried to motivate my aching arms and back by thinking, this isn't so bad. I wouldn't even allow myself to think about the work of moving it all back into that space. I wanted to remain excited for the end result. And I kept pondering, why do I have so many rocks? My mind went to processing. Is it better to have tons of little rocks that seem to get lost in all the little bowls and containers, or only have the big ones that stand on their own? Not big as in fist size, but big as in the length of my arm. Big and small, all shapes, round, oval, pointed, heart-shaped, some polished and some rough, and more dimes in super odd places as I continued to move my office into a temporary space. Now, I have a big oak desk in that space, and for me to be able to move it, I needed to empty all the drawers. So at the bottom of one of the drawers that only hosted power cords and cables and the projector I hadn't used in years, I found one dime laying on the rug as I carried books out to my car to donate to the local library. One dime on the ground as I walked into the post office to mail a few precious things off to some family members. One dime seemed to have fallen from the back of a picture as I was removing it from the wall. What? There's no way I put that there. I found a lost iPod under a drawer I pulled from my desk. I thought I had dropped it in the snow sometime back in 2017. I haven't needed it since then, so I certainly don't need it now. I emptied and moved the heavy oak desk and found about 30 cat toys under a space I didn't even know existed. I would later find another 10 cat toys under the couch, a space I had learned to check, but somehow had missed during my last cleaning. These findings lightened my mood, made me smile and laugh, and made work go easier. I was getting closer to having all the spaces cleared and ready for the remodeling to begin, and I decided to vacuum my office space one last time. Now I am replacing the carpet there, but something pushed me to vacuum it. So I did. And as I was doing so, I picked up something large and clunky. The large and clunky noise that makes you pause and wonder if the vacuum can handle it. My intuition told me it was a rock, and I needed to pull that rock from the dust container. I shook the dust container and heard the clunking again, so I knew it had to be a rock. And I did find it. It was a very small rose quartz heart, about a 1/2 inch polished rose quartz heart. Not one I would have usually in my possession. Years ago, I would give clients a rose quartz heart, but those were thinner and bigger. This heart was smaller and puffy, about the size of a bead, but yet it was not a bead. It was just a polished rose quartz, something I may have used in ceremonies or left behind on land gridding that I had done years ago. And then I felt my dad's presence. It, too, that rose quartz heart, was from my dad. All the dimes were from him. Each time I'd pick up a dime, I'd thank him. But the rose quartz was also from him, and it had special meaning. You see, when my mom died, I took him to visit my mom's grave. I gave him a rose quartz heart to leave, a bigger one that was about 1.5 inches in size. I gave him one to leave there and one for him to carry in his pocket. And he carried it everywhere. But I didn't know he carried it everywhere until years later. When my dad died, I was talking with an older sibling and we were sharing stories. And she shared she had seen this rose quartz heart in the TSA tray when she had traveled with them. He'd empty his pockets and go through the security checks at the airport, and there was that rose quartz heart. She shared that he was upset as he had lost it on a recent trip back to Minnesota, and she suggested he tell me, and I'd give him another. But he didn't want another. He wanted the one he had been carrying for years. If he had lost it in my house when he stayed here, I'd have found it. So I mentioned it to another sibling where my dad had stayed when visiting Minnesota, and she started laughing. Yes, she had found it on the floor under the bed in her guest room. She thought it was her daughter's, and when she asked her family, no one would claim it as theirs. She never even thought that it would belong to my dad. To them, it became this mystery rock. She returned it to me, and I placed it with my dad when he was buried. The priest eyed me suspiciously as I placed it in my dad's hand, but I felt this was the only place it was truly meant to be. I also gave all my siblings a similar rose quartz heart, and I shared the story with them. It wasn't only this heart rock, but many heart rocks, and the memory of my dad visiting me in Sedona, Arizona, walking the trails when he was 89 years old. I have pictures of him in hiking shorts, white knee highs, and his Marine's ball cap, looking for heart-shaped rocks, squealing with joy each time he found one, and we found a lot. Finding this rock in the vacuum at this time was a message that he was there, and I was on track, and I knew this was a message from him. He always loved a great project. 2025 might be a great project for many, whether one big project or a completion of lots of little ones. But we have helpers and teachers and those that support us. As I moved my office from its original place to a temporary room upstairs, I needed to disconnect, then reconnect all my computer equipment, my speakers and microphones and printers and more, lots of wires and cables. I thought I had all of them. How hard is it to disconnect, carry the stuff up some stairs, and reconnect? But somehow I seemed to have misplaced the printer cord. And I didn't discover that until I needed to print. Now, honestly, I could have flipped everything to Wi-Fi, but I wanted to find that cord. And I knew that if I asked St. Anthony to help me find the cord, he would. I did, and I went about doing some of the other things I needed to get done and came back to my temporary office space, paused a moment to connect to the knowing energy of the universe, and immediately I was drawn to a box where it had fallen into. I didn't force anything. I didn't force finding that cord by frantically searching through everything, but I relaxed, knowing that in a calmer flow state, I could tap into the records of where it was. I did need my things printed, but I also knew that rushing, pushing energy does not make things move any faster. Sometimes when we get into a flurry or rush of energy, that vibration of stress takes us into a different space where we no longer have access to the information we need or we asked for. Remembering to relax, to breathe and ask, and then listen. If you don't know who to ask for help, then ask your guides to help you find or help you form the question as to what you need. Anytime we bring closure or end to something, we have already planted the seeds for what will be in its place. We are following our journey plan, and when we get the urge to end something or change something or take another path, the universe is already laying out what that is for us. If we think of a farmer does not till his field and then decide what to plant. He has already decided what to plant for his next crop before even fully harvesting and tilling the field. The seeds have already been planted, and their growth is often pushing upward for the old to leave so it can be replaced and refreshed. So listen to where you're being pushed to replace, to refresh, to complete, to bring closure. In my home space and my property where I work, it has been heavily gridded over the years with crystals, rocks, ceremonies, prayers, and in some places to balance the ley lines and connect the energy, I've actually had copper rods placed. I didn't do that myself. I had it done by someone I trust who works with land energy. When the workers go to pull up the carpet in my office, I know they will find a few copper rods along the wall. And I can't wait for them to ask me about them. Anytime there's an upheaval, there is other energies that get stirred up. A new year, a significant life event can create a path for old energy to be stirred up. We've noticed in the house there's more activity. Visitors are energies that are both curious and stepping beyond previous boundaries. This is the energy of the land, energy of the house. It's the energy of the workers that are coming in and out. We've moved a few things, meaning energies that don't belong here. And I anticipate there will be more to move. In the last 2 months, I've taken 1 to 2 calls a week from individuals experiencing things in their homes or with them. Energies they don't believe belong there. I'm noticing a rise in more paranormal public events, meaning people are curious, going to expos, going to events, like visiting a haunted house, visiting places where energies might not belong. When I do a home or property clearing, I might ask my son to join me so we have balanced masculine, feminine energy. And honestly, then there's 2 of us looking, feeling, or sensing energies, gateways that are either new or old. They're not all bad, but if they are disrupting the home or the people in the home, then they need help. When I first moved into this home, the previous owner had already moved out of state. We had so many electrical problems on the west side of the house where I needed to replace major appliances such as the washer, the air conditioner, the garage door opener. That was how I first met and had a trusted land energy professional come to this property. This house was built upon an H fault where energy lines cross and create errant energy. Now that's been resolved over 20 years ago, but with simple projects that I was doing, it was enough to stir some things up again. My son saw an angry woman walk ahead of him down the hall and out into our garage, and that would be on the west end of our house. I know this is also a factor in the shifting of Mother Earth. Again, today, the news is filled with reports of massive weather systems hitting the lower half of the United States. Earthquakes, storms, volcanic eruptions are happening in other parts of the globe, and the land is shifting. The land's energy is shifting, and we can be a part of helping that energy be distributed to us more calmly if we remain calm and in flow. We are a conduit. Where we are runs energy or places energy. And also with timelines collapsing and shadow energy moving up into the light, we're experiencing more of the stirring of energy that doesn't know where to go. My podcast episode 285, Collapsing Timelines and Healing Fragmented Lifetimes, will give you more insight into why we might be experiencing more troublesome energies with the land and within our communities as the timelines collapse. Shadow energy is moving into the light. This also would explain why there's more of a curiosity about paranormal. You'll notice again this year that the sun will continue to escalate solar flares, more codes and keys given to process and use. But that's light, and the shadow energy is trying to also respond to this increased or elevated light. At times, it does not or maybe cannot be in the light, and that's when it can become disruptive, causing breakage or shorting out electrical items. And speaking of electrical items, my phone stopped working last night. It became fully drained of all power and would not even hold a charge. I'd plug it in, it would charge a little, and then it would shut down immediately as it drained. And when I would call it, it would roll directly into voicemail. I thought I'd need to get up early the next morning and make a quick run to the phone store, but before I did that, I paused and asked the universe to give me some insight into the phone issue. Was it an issue, or was there another solution? And I softly got the nudge to plug it into a cord that was in my office. But first, I had to shut it off. And it wasn't shutting off. Rather, it was trying to reboot. So a quick internet search on the issue gave me some insight as to how to do that, all being led by the wisdom of the universe and my higher self, all available with a pause, with an ask, with a listen, and then action. Slow down, pause. So back to, who is the woman that my son followed down the hall and out into the garage? The older woman that actually scared him, and he doesn't scare easily. The one that locked eyes with him as he didn't back down, even though it sent chills through him. Well, we weren't sure. Sometimes we don't get to know, or we don't have to know. And if I'm to know, then I know. Perhaps just someone being nosy to what was happening here. Someone that was passing through. Someone that now is no longer here. I've gone through the home. I've cleared it. I've reestablished boundaries. I've cleared him, and it gave me the opportunity to remind him to not allow any energy to create fear within him. It created the opportunity to remind him of his own power and to call in the protectors, the teachers, the wisdom keepers, if he ever felt he needed them. I reminded him that he was not alone. And the next time he came in from the garage, there on the floor, he found a dime. Make changes where you want or need to make changes. Know that the old will be eliminated so new can grow. And sometimes that is uncomfortable. And sometimes it's the best thing in the world. And sometimes there can be uncomfortableness along the pathway of getting to something good. Sometimes change can come at you with the force of a fire hydrant, and other times be patient and wait for the right timing. I trust you are always where you need to be, and the universe will help you get to where you are. And when you're in that headspace of not knowing if you should fight the rush of the fire hydrant flow or wait in the flow of the slow trickle, ask. Ask the universe to communicate to you. Watch the information, how it comes to you. Ponder how the universe is communicating with you. And ask who is communicating with you. Once they know you can pick up on their signs, they will continue to use those signs to reassure you they are with you. Don't be afraid to ask. Do listen and then act. Remember, doing nothing is actually doing something. As I finish here, I look out the window and there is a beautiful eagle circling in my back property. This reminds me that this is the year you'll find yourself saying more, wondering more, and also wondering if you maybe sound a little crazy, only to realize you're not crazy and you're standing in a new version of you, a new version of truth, and a deeper reality. Shine your light and love how that light shines. I'm Laurie Wondra of Your Life Core. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to Messages from the Universe. For information about Laurie Wondra's current events or to schedule a private session, visit her website, yourlifecore.com. You can also subscribe to her monthly newsletter. Laurie also shares inspirational and informational messages on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening.